The frustration that Jimmy displayed. Cornpop. I'm not going to read the rest of it. Without me, that's
Behold, pale horse. I'd pay $5 to see Jimmy Dore body slam a disagreeable guest. Just saying. LOL.
What the fuck?
So, hey, guess what? Guess what they're doing? Guess what they're doing now to the Palestinians? So they bombed them out of every city that they lived in Gaza. They've herded them now, and now they decided to starve them. So this is from this isn't from Gray Zone or I Hate Israel newspaper. This is from the AP. Just like
also
the last
Israeli press.
Just like the last
Israeli
press. Or just like the last story we did. Now the New York Times is telling you the truth that the Israeli army is using human shields. Now Netanyahu mulls plan to empty northern Gaza of civilians and cut off aid to those left inside. Let's read this story. It's a great story. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is examining a plan to seal off humanitarian aid. They've already done that, by the way. So they've done that. They shoot people.
Moles.
Right. They shoot people delivering humanitarian aid. They block humanitarian aid. And how do I know this? Because every agency in the United States government reported that they did that. And then Anthony Blinken, the head of the State Department, said, no, they're not doing that. So he lied to Congress.
Jimmy. They're looking into it.
In an attempt to starve out Hamas militants. But that plan, if implemented, could trap without food and water hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians.
That's the idea. Wink.
Israel has issued many evacuation orders for the north throughout the year-long war, the most recent of which was Sunday. The plan proposed, you know what they've done before is they've warned people leave and go here, and then when they go there, they bomb them. That's why when you hear they're bombing refugee camps, that's what Israel's been doing all along. Why do you think there's refugee camps inside Gaza? Because they fled their homes hoping they wouldn't get killed, and then they bombed them anyway.
Well,
so now people aren't going to leave their homes.
Hey, maybe they'll starve them and send them to a small American town and feed them our cats.
Yeah. The plan proposed to Netanyahu and the Israeli parliament by a group of retired generals would escalate the pressure, giving Palestinians a week to leave the northern third of the Gaza Strip, including Gaza City, before declaring it a closed military zone. And then what do? Then those who remain would be considered combatants. Even if they're
their own hostages.
Even if they're 6 days old or 89 years old. Meaning military regulations would allow troops to kill them, as if they haven't been doing that all along. And then they would deny them food, water, medicine, fuel, according to a copy of the plan given to the AP by its chief architect, who says the plan is the only way to break Hamas in the north and pressure it to release the remaining hostages. It's all bullshit. Hamas has already agreed to release the hostages for a ceasefire. They won't do it. So you're not going to break Hamas.
Well,
what you're doing is they don't want to break Hamas. They want to keep Hamas there so they can keep doing this. That's why
they're sympathetic, not if they're Hamas's, though.
That's right. Israeli defense officials, government pushing aside hostage deal, eyeing Gaza annexation. So the impediment to the Netanyahu. That's why people hate Netanyahu, even in Israel. That's why they've been
droves.
That's why they've been protesting Netanyahu, even inside Israel. IDF commanders in Gaza say the recent decision to operate in the northern part of the Strip was taken without proper deliberations and is apparently aimed at pressuring civilians in the area to relocate. According to Israel's government is not seeking to revive the hostage talks. That's from the Israeli newspaper.
Right. Well,
they're the ones.
We have AIPAC. They don't have AIPAC. They don't have an ADL. Those are things for us stupid assholes in America to have in our news. And they get to hear what they're doing.
And so what they want to do is annex Gaza into the Greater Israel Project. They don't only want Gaza and the West Bank. They want parts of Syria. They want parts of Iran. They want parts of Iraq.
Oh, think how great it would be to move in there right after they get done doing that. How comfortable you'll feel around your neighbors.
The plan calls for Israel to maintain control over the north for they're called that's called imperialism. They're called occupying and they're called colonial settlers.
Yeah,
these are things that the college kids have been taught for at least 50 years. That's the worst thing you could be.
Well, they could have moved out of America. That's how we got our great nation.
So the plan calls for Israel to maintain control over the north for an indefinite period to attempt to create a new administration without Hamas, splitting the Gaza Strip in two. This has been their plan all along. One official with knowledge of the matter said parts of the plan are already being implemented. A second official who was Israeli said Netanyahu has read and studied the plan. Like many plans, they have reached him throughout the war. But he didn't say whether any of it had been adopted. Well, they're already implementing some of it. On Sunday, Israeli launched an offensive against Hamas fighters in Jabalia refugee camp north of the city. The amount of aid reaching the north has declined significantly since October 1st. Yeah, that means that Israel's stopping humanitarian aid to the people in northern Gaza. Vice President Kamala Harris says the UN reports that no food has entered northern Gaza in nearly 2 weeks. Well, I guess we should give Israel more money. Yeah. Israel must urgently do more to facilitate the flow of aid to those in need. Civilians must be protected and must have access to food, water, and blah, 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 blah. Go F yourself. CNN says no food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of going hungry. Who says that? The World Food Program says that. CNN, did you hit your head bending over backwards this far to avoid saying that Israel is blocking food from Gaza? No food has entered? That's how CNN reports that. No food has entered. Oh, it's the food. The food doesn't want to enter, huh?
Does it not have its papers?
The U.S. State Department spokesperson has said Washington is against any plan that would bring direct Israeli occupation in Gaza.
So?
What
are you going to do? They're going to put those tapes out of all that stuff you guys did that Epstein got. So you better let them do whatever the hell they want forever. Because Israel knows what you are, and they'll tell us. That's why.
Human rights groups fear the plan's potential. Man, I would just love to see the videos of Bill Clinton that Epstein has, because they have. So that means the Mossad has. Human rights groups fear the plan's potential toll on civilian. Human rights groups say the plan would likely starve civilians, and that it flies in the face of international law, which prohibits the use of food as a weapon and forcible transport. Is there a Geneva Convention or an international rule of war that Israel hasn't blatantly broken many times already? Accusations that Israel is intentionally limiting food to Gaza are central to the genocide case brought against it at the International Court of Justice. A coalition of Israeli non-governmental organizations on Monday urged the international community to act, noting that there are alarming signs. Even Saudi Arabia won't act. Qatar won't act. Even other Arab nations won't do a goddamn thing.
Well, they're kind of in on it.
They are kind of in on it. The only people that are doing anything about it are the Houthis in Yemen.
Yeah, well,
and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Those are the only people doing anything.
Saudis, Pakistan, they're all in the network. They're all in the network together with our shitty government and NATO and the whole Epstein. He's just a small node in the network, just a small one.
There are alarming signs that the Israeli military is beginning to quietly implement the plan. They're doing it. Of course they are.
Quiet? Is it?
States have an obligation to prevent the crimes of starvation and forcible transfer. A wait-and-see approach will enable Israel to liquidate northern Gaza. Of course, that's their whole plan. That's always been the plan. That's why Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu funded Hamas. So far, very few Palestinians have heeded the latest evacuation order. Some are older, some are sick, or afraid to leave their homes, but many fear there's nowhere safe to go anyway, and they'll never be allowed back. Of course they won't. Mm-hmm. Israel has prevented those who fled earlier from the war from returning. Yes, of course. Jeremy Scahill, who every once in a while says something worth listening to. Other times he's a lapdog to power. Well, this time he's got something to say, I guess.
Was he a vax guy? Was he a COVID vax guy?
He won't tell you the truth about Syria. He won't tell you the truth. He's just a bullshit. Yeah, he gave cover to AOC during Force the Vote. He's one of those guys. He works for The Intercept. He gets paid by a billionaire, so his opinion has to go through a billionaire first. According to Israeli officials, Antony Blinken approved policy to bomb Gaza aid trucks. Following the meetings, Bezalel Smotrich said that policy was aid trucks hijacked by Hamas and its organizations would be bombed from the air. So they just say, oh, those aid trucks have been hijacked by Hamas. So they're just bombing aid trucks. And they're admitting it. And it's so bad that even Jeremy Scahill has to say something about it. Isn't that something? President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and Antony Blinken caught in a huge scandal. They actively engaged in a cover-up of their own agency's findings and data regarding Israel intentionally blocking humanitarian aid in Gaza and had Blinken lie to Congress. We've already reported this. I think that's a 4-year-old girl who starved to death. So, hip, hip, hooray. And I know there's a lot of people in this audience who think it's smart or cool or somehow to support Israel. It's not. They're terrorists. They're terrorist Nazis. This isn't two armies fighting. This is one army with Apache helicopters and 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, and tanks slaughtering innocent civilians. That's what this is. And so if you don't like Nazis, then you shouldn't like the Israeli army or Netanyahu. Anyway, it's just mind-blowing to me how people can still, because they've been so mind-warped into thinking, oh, Hamas, they're bad. It's not about Hamas. It's not about Hamas. Anyway, over to Steph.
All right, Jimmy, what do you think, going to Rumble now or one more story?
I want to do one more story.
All right, one more story, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Ukraine and Hamas use Viet Cong tactics. If you put weapon caches and mines in civilian areas, don't expect armies to act kind to you. Most of the outrage is self-righteous, bleeding heart hypocrisy.
What? Could you read that again?
Yeah. Ukraine and Hamas use Viet Cong tactics. If you put weapon caches and mines in civilian areas, don't expect armies to act kind to you. Most of the outrage is self-righteous, bleeding heart hypocrisy. I don't understand this.
No, hang on a second. Hold on. I want to respond to that.
All right.
Go ahead. You can read another one.
I'll read a couple. I'll put that to the side. Jack in a Box, thank you very much. Jack in a Box, Jimmy. Whoa, coming hard. They want you to lose the ego and announce you will vote for Trump. It would be very Jungian of you. Jack in a Box. I don't think that is Jungian of him.
No, I mean, I'll vote against Kamala Harris for sure.
Show Jimmy.
I'll vote against Kamala Harris and the Democrats for sure. But I have a red line at someone who promises to continue the Democrats' policy of genocide. That's just I couldn't vote for that and then feel good about myself. I can't. Do I think that Trump is the lesser of two evil in other respects? Certainly when it comes to the Ukraine war, when it comes to the border, when it comes to our food policy, yes, that is true. But
this is just to buy a little bit more time of life, because if Kamala gets in, the disaster would be, that means there is zero resistance to the military-industrial complex, not even the piddling amount Trump had.
Jimmy, here's the statement that you wanted to respond to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and this is from Scott. He says, Ukraine and Hamas use Viet Cong tactics. If you put weapon caches and mines in civilian areas, don't expect armies to act kind to you. Most of the outrage is self-righteous, bleeding heart hypocrisy.
Yeah, so that's the old. Well, I gotta drop a bomb on a refugee camp that has 400 of old women, grandparents, babies, children in it because there is one Hamas guy there. Even Wolf Blitzer. Even Wolf Blitzer, who's been for every war in my lifetime and is a former member of AIPAC, even Wolf Blitzer is that shocks his conscience. So you're further to the right of Wolf Blitzer. Congratulations, Scott. You sound like a Nazi. Yeah, you're not supposed to. They won't act kindly to you. You mean you're gonna go and kill children, right? On purpose? That's your euphemism for not act kindly? Because that's what you mean. Why don't you use the words that you really mean? Because you know it makes you sound like a monster. That's why. That's why you dress it up and say they won't act kindly. Okay.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
at this time more than any other time,
revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, the babies that have been murdered, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, money poor people. This government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. We don't really know what war is, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison. But they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators. And they're going to have riots on their hands. They're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. We have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, what we need, what needs to be done. And, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. Don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, this system and those backing the officials running the system, want people to believe that revolution means violence, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. When people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. They get it from us accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it. Then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. Every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. Our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. Men, women, and children were murdered. And not just MOVE babies. What about all of the young men, women, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, by drug pushers? Where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, making a quick buck, I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.